Something else that we are watching this morning is Delta shares. Now, the company beat on revenue in the third quarter. The shares are up about 1.3%. And Brad, you talked to CEO Ed Bastian in the wake of, or I guess ahead of the numbers, got a little insight into them. What's driving what's going on here?
Yeah, there was a ton, and it comes back to demand and the capacity here. Demand on one end, because we all have our own, perhaps, frustrations or stories about what was taking place over the summer, because everybody was doing some of this revenge traveling. And what we saw show up in these numbers that on the earnings front were kind of a slight miss just because of an earnings impairment, a 3-cent impairment from Hurricane Ian. And that's really the only thing that took them off of hitting that $1.54 on the EPS front. So essentially in line when you back that out. And on the revenue, that actually came in just slightly ahead of expectations, $12.84 billion there, which ultimately spells out a record quarter on the revenue front for Delta. One of the things that Ed Bastian did point out was really just speaking more about how they had to bring more capacity up to speed. And we actually had some of the commentary from him on that matter. And I wanted to run a little bit of that just for our viewers here as well.
We saw what happened earlier this spring when we pushed ourselves a little faster than we thought we could, and the reliability suffered. So I'm confident we can get there by next summer. And as we bring that additional capacity back, that's going to help probably take a little bit of the pressure off of pricing for consumers. But more importantly for Delta, it's going to enable us to get much better cost productivity, and we'll be able to pass along some of that cost savings onto our customers.
And so that's the big question for consumers, right, is when they can expect some of those fare prices to start to come down. And it's really going to come in the form of increased capacity. It's important to know that on the traveler front, in terms of how many people are actually getting on these flights, they've been 90% full on their average flights since April of this year. At the same time, though, you've got fuel expenses that are up 45%. Some of that gets passed on to the consumers. Of course, I mentioned the impairment from Hurricane Ian. But in terms of when that capacity will be fully restored, they're targeting over these next 6 to 9 months. So really look for mid-2023 for that full restoration. And they've also got some purchase agreements as well for even some of the years out in revamping what that flight experience looks like. New aircraft being added to the fleet by 2025 with some of the new Boeing 737-100 aircraft. So that is set to come, but that is going to be kind of the longer term for full service restoration from this point forward, and perhaps when consumers can expect some of the fare prices to start to tick lower as well as capacity improves.
Hey, Julie, I'm putting on your not a fan hat here. And this is a good quarter from Delta, but I do have to take a little issue with Delta calling out $7 per share in potential earnings by 2024. If you go to the Yahoo Finance Delta ticker page and you click under the analysis tab, you'll see the street's looking for about $4.89 a share for 2023. So that is a lot of earnings that Delta is guiding the street to from 2023 to let's say 2024, right into the teeth of a potential recession. So I think in this environment, all companies should be a little more conservative. Go out there and beat your numbers, but clearly Delta has a different take on this.
Yeah, we've got much more from the full conversation with Delta CEO Ed Bastian as well, Soz. And it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, especially going into the teeth of a potential recession here. Ed Bastian saying that the company and the industry actually might be going through a counter-cyclical recovery, even in the face of the teeth of a recession, as we've been discussing here as well, even as economists calculate that likelihood of a soft landing scenario. The executives at Delta, they seem confident that that counter-cyclical experience that they're watching and tracking right now actually gives them a little bit of the spending power to continue to increase their operational capacity and perhaps still cozy up to consumers who, quite frankly, just want to spend on experiences and services, as we've seen that shift from goods spending to services as well, and enriching themselves, as Ed had put it too.